these things have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and by believing have eternal life. That's what John writes towards the end of his book. And the Gospel of John has been used to be a source for new believers that just came to Christ. Hey, read through this Gospel. That's one of the first books that I tell people to read if they want to know more about Christ. It's so good at an introductory, elementary level for a new believer, but it's also wonderful for a veteran Christian who's been a Christian for years because there are so many great theological truths that we can learn. John writes the book between 80 and 90 AD with the theme that Jesus is the Son of God. I want you to think about that for a moment, that Matthew describes Jesus as the King of the Jews. Mark, the suffering servant. Luke, he emphasizes the humanity. He is the Son of Man. And yet John completes this biographical picture as Jesus being the Son of God. And what we find in this book are three main elements of Jesus that we can believe. Well, what do you need to believe about Jesus? Well, the first thing is I want you to believe in his power. And what John does in writing systematically is he gives 7 signs or 7 descriptions of the power of Jesus Christ. 7 miracles that Jesus does in the book of John. For instance, his first miracle recorded is turning water into wine at the wedding at Cana. That's in John chapter 2. Then we see Jesus feeding the 5,000, John chapter 6. We also see Jesus walking on water towards the end of John chapter 6. In John chapter 4, we see that he heals the official's son. In John chapter 5, he heals the crippled man on the Sabbath. In John chapter 9, he heals the blind man. But the 7th sign or miracle that we see, his most powerful sign, is raising Lazarus from the dead in John chapter 11. So we want to believe in his power, but we also want to believe in the person of Jesus Christ. Who is he? Well, Jesus would refer to himself in this way. He would say, I am. Referring back to the Old Testament, back to Exodus, where God would call himself, I am. Jesus, every time he says 7 times in the book of John, I am, he's making a statement about his person. And what's interesting is the I am statements refer back many times to the 7 miracles that he did. For instance, he says, I am the bread of life in John chapter 6, referring to the time of feeding the 5,000. I am the light of the world, John 8, where he heals the blind man. I am the door or the gate of the sheep. I am the good shepherd, John chapter 10. He says, I am the resurrection and the life when he raises Lazarus from the dead. I am the way, the truth, and the life in John chapter 14. And he tells us, the disciples, I am the true vine in John chapter 15. He is God. So we want to believe in his power. We want to believe in his person, but ultimately we want to believe in his passion. What is the passion of Jesus Christ? Well, what we call Passion Week is the very last week of his earthly ministry in which he went to the cross for us. And there are 7 events of the Passion Week. There is the Passover meal that he takes with his believers in John chapter 13. The Lord's Prayer in John chapter 17, where he prays in the garden. He sweats drops of blood. We see the arrest in John chapter 18, taken as the Son of Man. The trials that he would face unjustly and under the cover of darkness, Jesus faces those trials in John chapter 19. And then we see the crucifixion as he hangs between 2 thieves, 2 rioters, 2 robbers, and he declares, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He cries out, it is finished, to tell us die. But we also see the burial, John chapter 19, where he's put in a borrowed man's tomb. And ultimately, the resurrection of Jesus Christ in John chapter 20 culminates the 7 events of the Passover week. So when John says, I write these things so that you may believe, believe what? Believe that Jesus is the Son of God. His power, his person, his passion reveal that to us. And that is what makes John worth reading.